The Italian Radio Hour is sponsored by Istituto Mondo Italiano.
Mozilo Mattaro, Gattaro e Mapo.
Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana, and while Caterina is traveling throughout Italy, I would like to still welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome the new listeners or anyone listening online at khbradio.com. Also, be sure to like the Italian Radio Hour on Instagram and Facebook not to miss any of the episodes. E come al solito, benvenuti ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo. Grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. Last week we had a very interesting conversation with author Michelle Damiani and the experience that she had transferring, moving her family, 3 children, 2 cats to the beautiful town of Spello in Umbria, and the other many amenities and wonderful events that the Umbria region offers. And talking about events, May seems to be sprouting with great events, and throughout the show, I would like to point out a couple of them that we will be personally attending, and I highly encourage you all to come and join us. The first one is actually a concert. It's 2 concerts back-to-back on Tuesday, May the 17th and May the 18th at 7 p.m. at City of Asylum in the North Side. City of Asylum is very happy, ecstatic to bring back master jazz pianist Claudio Coggianis from Italy. He's actually from the Veneto region. He's coming back for his 3rd year after 2 sold-out concerts in Pittsburgh, and also taking care of all of us with his beautiful music during lockdown. During the 2 events on Tuesday night, Claudio is joined by 2 members of his trio and will debut the album Orphans. This album combines Balkan folk music with Claudio's mastery of the blues. Definitely a not to be missed concert. And the following day, as if that was not enough, Claudio returns onto the stage along with master saxophone player Oliver Lake for a very special event. So please come and join us Tuesday, May the 17th and Wednesday, May the 18th at 7 p.m. at City of Asylum. And the tickets are free. You just have to go onto their website to reserve your spots. Most likely the events will sell out. And you can also join online and in the comfort of your home. But definitely that is an event that if you do have the time and availability, I will highly recommend that you come in person. So, as usual, we're getting down to the meaning of the language trivia of the week, and the expression that you were presented with was andare nel pallone. So, I put a cute little picture of this little guy with a soccer ball on his head. So, I wonder if you had a soccer ball on your head, could you actually think straight? But probably not. So this is an expression that we use quite regularly when we cannot, whether we're stressed or we're tired, we cannot think straight, and so we might commit some mistakes because siamo andati nel pallone. Okay, so this is it. We're ready to move on to today's episode. And we're dedicating this episode, since we're closer to Mother's Day, to 2 young Italian women with unique professions. Our first guest will be Nadia Fugazza. She's an executive producer, a story editor, post-producer, editor. She is from Italy, currently lives in LA, and she's also the head of a podcast called Murder Italian Style. But before, pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org.
When you think of Italy, you probably think of pizza, pasta, gelato, churches, Michelangelo, Rome.
How was Venice built on water? The mafia, fashion, and good-looking men.
who cheat. We are Nadia and Tiziano, two Italian transplants in Los Angeles. We make films, we have never done a podcast, but we are obsessed with murders. Let us take you to a different side of our bel paese, the beautiful country, the side of passion murderers, serial killers, celebrity homicides, and just plain stupid criminals.
Please mind our accent. This is murder, Italian style.
And welcome to the show, Nadia. Are you with us?
Yes, I am. Grazie, Viviana. Thank you for having me.
È un piacere. I was so looking forward to putting your podcast file through because it definitely sets the mood for the conversation we will be having. Before we get to that, to the juicy part of the conversation, let's introduce you to the audience. Tell us a little bit where you're originally from in Italy, maybe your background, your studies, and what brought you to California.
Yes, so I'm originally from a little town called Biella in the region of Piemonte, which is northwest of Italy. And I came here almost 30 years ago to go to college and go to film school at the University of Southern California. And then when I graduated, I started first my career as an editor and then as a producer. And I had brief stints where I lived in Italy for a year or two here and there in the 30 years that I've been gone. But in the end, now I can safely say that I can call Los Angeles my home. So that's how I found myself then thinking about a podcast.
And so was California your first and destination from Italy, or did you live somewhere else and then you landed in California?
Yeah, I had a brief stint in New York and then I came to LA, but mainly it's always been in Los Angeles. Most of the time.
Okay.
Yes.
And so by looking at your bio, you have always been engaged in like a good part of your career was in social issues documentaries that really took you all over the world. Can you tell us a little more about that?
That was, I sort of fell into it. I mean, that's sort of the reason why I wanted to go into film, because I love documentaries and I love the social aspect of them. Of course, unfortunately, there's not a lot of money in most of these documentaries, and so I would take bigger jobs in TV shows and film to then go and do documentaries whenever I could. So I would say that the most important one that I did was about the civil war in Nepal, and because it is one of the biggest and bloodiest civil war that we have seen, I want to say, in the last 15 years in a country that was, a monarchy for 400 years and untouched and deemed very safe, that had a terrible internal revolution. And so there I was really in touch with all of these victims that were the relatives and close relatives of people that were disappeared, just like you had in Chile, in South America, with Pinochet. So we helped and tried to help these families try to find out what happened to their family members that had been disappeared during the revolution. So that has sort of always been my passion, which is, again, what also is helping in loving what we do with this podcast, because it really has to do with, real crimes and the real life of characters, not, something fictional.
Wonderful. And so then this is, so to speak, a switch of gear. I know that you have also some big names attached to the work you have done, Porsche, Ferrari, Harley Davidson, HBO, Showtime. So I can imagine fast speed cars and motorcycles. You had a project also where you filmed Derek Bell and the two Porsches, the 718s in Sicily. That's a great article, great, amazing pictures. How was that?
that was very exciting because in the last part, the latest part of my career, I found myself working in automotive and especially with vintage cars. And so that's where I transitioned from being an editor to being a producer. And Porsche was my client. I mean, our client at the company, but it was assigned to me. And so the challenge was to introduce the new Porsche 718 that carried a very big legacy with the latest 718. So we were able to find the prototype and have Derek Bell drive the car in the Targa Florio circuit. And the Targa Florio is a historical vintage car race that takes place in Sicily every year. And so we shipped both the new car and the vintage car to Sicily from the U.S. And that was amazing because Derek was an absolute star and was driving this car that was very basic. It didn't have a reverse. The seat is very uncomfortable because it's a race car, but it was a prototype from the 60s, so very difficult to drive. And it was maybe, I think, on day 3 or 5 that he asked me for a pillow because he had bruises. Like, he's so skinny, and he had never complained about having to, drive like that 8 hours a day. But yeah, we had some challenges. We had, sheep on the road, out of curves and on roads that were supposedly closed for safety. We turned a corner at very high speed, and we found a guy that was driving a Fiat Panda, which is sort of like a very small,
we do have one.
Car, but he was trailing, so he had his hand out the window, and he was hand-holding a donkey with a rope. So he was driving 10 miles an hour, basically driving along the donkey who was walking. So that's how he was transporting the donkey on a very windy road, and Derek was right behind us. We were filming out of the back of the car, and it was, we nearly avoided an accident. And this is on a road, again, that should have been, closed for safety. So these are the few things that, we had on that shoot. But in the end, everybody went home unscanted and happy. So, yes.
Wonderful. And then, fast forwarding in your career to kind of last year and so forth, we all have gone through lockdown, and whether people were looking for a change in their career or just had time to be a little more creative, you came up with the podcast that we introduced today, Murder Italian Style. So there is 2 of you, okay? And tell us a little bit, what were you doing when you and Tiziano came up with this idea? Was there many options or was this, no, let's do this?
Yeah, so basically it was, the beginning of 2001, there were like some hopes that we were going to get a vaccine soon and there was going to be an end to this, but we were very sort of like down, emotionally, because a lot of the filming had been stopped for at least a year. And so being in automotive, we couldn't really do anything related to automotive because we couldn't be in a car in such a closed environment with anybody. And it was, at the time, Los Angeles wouldn't let you film, or if you had to, it was just very complicated. So we said, well, while we ride this thing out, what can we do that, it's going to sort of keep our sanity? And Tiziano, who I've worked with for many years, he basically said, well, we were both very much into following, murders and, the logistics of murders, and just finding, really also studying what goes on in the psyche of a person that commits a crime, and sometimes even if they're stupid crimes, we find them even funnier because it's like, how could you possibly think that was going to be feasible, Mm-hmm. So basically, he said, well, what if we have a lot of murder cases in Italy that are actually, they go from being very complicated to being very diabolical. And so we said, what if we bring them to the American audience in a way that it's light? I mean, we don't pretend to be experts of anything, right? This is just like in the first part of the podcast, we sort of give you the story of what happens, the facts, and then we go into sort of reflection where we talk ad lib between the two of us about what, you know, our opinions are of what happened and of what didn't happen, and why the criminals got the sentence that they had. So, you know, so this was, it started off like, oh, as a joke, you know, we saw that that Ridley Scott was working on the Gucci film, and we remember the Gucci case very well because it's sort of, first of all, it's you know, fairly recent, and it was so wild, and also how, you know, in the end, the wife got caught. So we said, well, why don't we start with that? And we have a year, essentially, almost a year to premiere it because we wanted to premiere it when the film would premiere. And we said, let's see what happens with one, and then we can write it, record it, and see how we do. And it was so much fun, and it sort of got us so into it that we then compiled, I think, a document with like 300 murders that we were aware of, and then figured out which ones had to be the first 7 episodes for season 1. 6 or 7 episodes, that's what we figured we would do. And Tiziano's mom, Franca Milan, is our researcher on the ground in Italy. She's really amazing, and you know, she does all of the research for us in the Italian media, and then sort of finds ways that we can watch the content from here, because sometimes it's not as easy. You know, sometimes we can VPN into these sites pretending to be in Italy, but sometimes we can't. And so she's very good at like watching things for us and boiling it down in ways that we can get, you know, ideas and facts. So that's sort of how it happened.
So you have your routine in the morning with your coffee. You read all the testate, all the Italian newspapers, and you know trying to get it. And then together with Tiziano and his mom, you kind of reconvene and kind of make a selection of who is going to be featured. For anyone that is listening that has an Instagram account, you can go onto their account. It's Murder Italian Style. And so you have, so you analyze these crimes. You also share them in the English language, because that was the main thing. And are there any specific ones that I don't know, either you remember more vividly, or maybe you and Tiziano had different opinions, so, or you might still have different opinions about what happened. And also another thing, sorry, too many questions at the same time, something about maybe if you can draw a parallel between the Italian judicial system and the American judicial system for the way that you understand to be different or similar. So first question, you know, memorable case or something that you're still arguing, and then the technicalities. Yes.
So the two cases that for us, I mean, at least for me, stood out were the Erba Massacre. Erba is a little town in Como, close to Lake Como, and it was this couple, very kind of old couple, very much to themselves, were accused of slaughtering the family that lived upstairs from them, including a 2-year-old boy. There has never been, I don't think, a more bloodier scene in Italy that was an organized crime. So and because they confessed, and they confessed via video, I wasn't living in Italy at the time, but I remember it being so shocking that sort of like in the back of my head, this was going to be a very easy case, slam dunk. We write it, Rosa and Olindo were the two perpetrators, the accused, and we said this is going to be easy, and we're just going to talk about modality of murder, not, whether they did it or not. And it actually turned out to be a massive time suck because what we didn't know is that there's never been so many documentaries made in Italy about a single murder like there were about Erba, for a variety of reasons, but also because ultimately it was absolutely inconceivable that these two people did it. There was no trace, there's no absolutely zero trace of their presence in that apartment or outside of it. And they got a life in prison without the possibility of parole, both of them. So it was sort of shocking for us. We're like, okay, all right, this is not going to be so easy. And to us, actually, it was like, wow, that's how case in point, how your mind works, right? Because I had remembered them seeing videos and not really remembering what they said, but seeing videos of them confessing, that in my mind, that perception of them being absolutely 100% guilty had been planted. And then a second case that we both agreed, but it was shocking for me, was Avetrana. So Avetrana is a tiny town in the south of Italy, so completely opposite from Erba. Sarascati, 16 years old, disappears going a very short distance from her home to her cousin's home in the middle of summer. And a month later, her uncle confesses to having killed her, and then he sort of changes his version like 5 times, and then basically it comes out that her cousin, which is more like her peer, she's in like mid-20s, killed her, and then her father helped her, so Sarah's uncle helped bury the body. Now again, this murder is, very weird. I think that there's a lot more people involved that we would like to believe. But these women, so the cousin and the aunt, which again, there's no proof that she was anywhere near the crime scene, they both got life in prison with a possibility of parole. And the uncle only did 5 years for helping bury the body. And so out of all of this, what we really, to go now and transition into technicalities, if we look at all these cases as a whole, what we found out is that there's really sort of like an established sentence for crimes of passion, which is around 16 years. So all of these men that, or husbands that kill their wives, girlfriends, if they can prove that there was no intent, so not first-degree murder as you would conceive it in the United States, then the maximum that they get is 16 years, and then they're out, right? For the women, it's much different. When there's a woman perpetrator, they get life in prison without the possibility of parole for committing the same type of murder, not necessarily a crime of passion, but just a murder with no intent. So it's interesting to, to me, it's more a reflection of society that is Italy and their judicial system than it is about the nature of the crime. I actually studied law in Italy for 1 year before coming to the United States, so I'm not completely, foreign to the way judicial system works in Italy. I sort of have a general idea of how it works in the United States, but our big difference is basically that we have a code of law. So, the United States operates with common law, which is the same thing as in Great Britain, where you look at past cases to, first of all, also you have a jury. You look at past cases to establish if this case, the modality of a case is analog enough to be tried a different way or in the same way. Whereas in Italy, we have a code of law. And so once you establish what the crime is and the nature of the crime, then you're going to get a certain amount of years, which is pre-established by our code of law. Now, also, we have many more layers of appeal that you have in the United States. But all of those layers of appeal will not be available to you if you decide to have what we call a rito abbreviato, which is a shorter span trial, which means that basically you automatically admit fault, and for that you will get a little bit of a discount on the years that you're going to, be given as a sentence, but you then don't get to appeal it. And so I feel that in some of these cases that we've looked at, the people that have committed these crimes were very simple, and I mean that in the best of ways. Maybe ill-advised from probably court-appointed lawyers, and they decided to they were put in a room and they said, listen, we have you. You're going to go down for this, so you might as well sign this and decide to do the shortest trial because if you go to the big trial, you don't know what you're going to get. You could get life in prison. So that's the two differences, and then also the timings. The timings here are in Italy are much longer than the United States. It could basically. They normally don't start trial until maybe a year and a half after the crime has been committed, and it's drawn out. And if they do go to a full trial, between all the appeals, 10 years could go by. Then, of course, by the time, if the perpetrator is in jail for all those years, then those years will be discounted from, time served. Basically, it's the same thing as the United States.
Okay, well, you have definitely shed a different light on looking at the system and also some of the injustice in the system, as you pointed out. Again, these unique podcasts is also to provide in information and some sort of analysis. So, if people want to follow you, what are the platforms where they can listen to your podcasts?
So the podcast is on Spotify, and again, it's Murder Italian Style. It's also on Apple Podcast, and we have our Instagram, which is at Murder Italian Style. We have 6 episodes currently on Spotify, and every Friday we put out another format, shorter format, which is called 1 minute. Murder, which is basically all of the murders that don't make it to the 1 hour show, but that we still deem interesting. We boil them down into a 1 minute video with audio.
Una pillola di cronaca nera.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. On our Instagram account.
Okay, so. Nadia, this has been a very interesting. We said it was going to be a unique conversation. We thank you very much. We hope to follow up with you again in the future as you continue to develop your investigations, maybe on different types of murders or type of crimes. Grazie di nuovo, buona serata, and I hope to meet you in person sometime in the near future. Ciao, ciao.
Yes, grazie te, Viviana. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay, so a little pubblicità before we move on to our second guest. This is actually another event announcement. As I said, May is beautiful because he's bringing now to an event that is going to be very dear to me. Is the Order Italian Sons and Daughters of America in the Western PA District would like to extend a warm welcome to the community to attend the 47th Debutante Presentation Ball. It will take place on Saturday, Saturday, May the 21st, from 5 o'clock to 11 p.m. at the Edgewood Country Club. This is a time-honored tradition to celebrate our Italian heritage and the achievements and successes of our young women as they take their next steps into the future. For ticket information, please reach out to isdareservations@gmail.com. We would love to have you join in for this momentous occasion. Okay, so we are ready for our second very special woman, Alessandra Rellini. Alessandra, are you with us?
Yes, I am, and I'm
Okay.
here with my 10-year-old because today is Mother's Day.
Wonderful. So Alessandra is actually an associate professor in clinical psychology at the University of Vermont, and also the head of this beautiful farm and reality that we're going to talk all about today. So Alessandra, let's just connect you back to Italy. Where are you originally from, and when or what brought you to the United States?
Well, I'm from Genova. Originally, my family's from there, but my mom's side is from Piedmont, so I was raised by Piedmontese grandmas and grandaunt.
And then this interest that eventually brought to create Agricola farm, was it something that you always had, or how did you develop it?
No, I definitely did not always have this interest. I never even grew up with animals. I came to the States when I was 15 to learn English and just to get comfortable with the culture here. And then I really liked it, so I stayed, and I started a career in clinical psychology as a professor, researcher. And I moved to Vermont. And here, everybody raises their animals, has a little garden. So it started that way, and then things got out of control.
In a good way. So you started with the tre porcellini, the three little piglets. No, kidding. But can you tell?
Literally, yeah, no, you're right on.
I tre
Pigs and a few
porcellini.
pigs, yeah, and now as Eva says, I have way too many pigs.
Ciao Eva. Quanti porcellini ci sono? Quanti porcellini alla mamma? Ok, avete tutti voi.
Tantissime.
Tantissimi. And then you have also pecore, sheep, polli, anatre, a little bit of everything, right?
Sì, anche anatre.
Anche
Esatto.
anatre. So obviously, this is something that now you have been working on for about a dozen years, right? About 10, 11, 12 years?
Yeah, I started in originally 2006, and that was just a homestead, and I was just doing raising just the food for my family and friends, and then people wanted to start buying it, so things became more serious. More animals need more land, and so here we are, like packing all the pigs and and all the furnitures and Eva on the truck and moving across the state to be where I am now, where I have a farm of 65 acres, and it's my partner Stefan and I, and Eva, and some other farm assistants that run the farm, but also we have opened a salumeria, so we started making cured meats.
Yes, so let's still stay on the labor, because it's very labor intensive. I would assume.
Yeah.
What is your day like? When does the alarm goes off? I mean,
You don't want to
it's
know.
24/7, right? 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
And the thing about the farm is that you never know. You know, the other day we just had a lamb that was born that had difficulties eating from their mom, and so the day started at 2 a.m. With this little lamb crying in the bathroom, and then rushed to the university, which is about 45 minutes from here, to administer an exam to the students, and then rush to the salumeria, and then come back to the farm to feed the animals, maybe give a couple injections, and then cook for having dinner for everybody, and then do research at night, and then and then finally hit the pillow and then begin
start
again.
over
But you
again.
never know what's going to be.
Exactly. So now, if I remember correctly, or if I have read correctly, there was a very successful crowdfunding experience, so that has allowed you to expand. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we are fortunate that we've also had a little agritourism going. So we had dinners here, so we got to know a lot of people who have been very, very supportive through the years. And so what happened is that we needed new equipment to make coppa, prosciutto, and other things. And so we needed to buy equipment. So we reached out to our community, and they responded. And within 2 weeks, we were able to collect $33,000, and we're now starting the production of this other cure meat. So that's been a wonderful experience, not just because it's nice to find the money to do something, but also because there were just so many people who just donated whatever they could or wanted, or, it was just very nice to see so many people involved. So.
Indeed, it must have been a recognition of the hard work you've been putting and the quality of the products you put out. And also, when we as consumers enjoy the final products, there are so many considerations that go into a farm or a production. And I think in Italy, you have all the DOP, the IGPs, you have all these recognitions. So, I mean, obviously what you produce is also very local to what your animals are fed on. And then when we talk about feeding, we should be concerned about what is in the ground. So it's just, it's really a much deeper conversation. So can we expect to see some sort of label, say prosciutto di Vermont?
Yes, actually, prosciutto Champlain,
the beautiful lake of Champlain.
You will, and I think what I like about our little system here is that everybody does everything. So even the people who are mainly butchers, they come to work at the farm. And actually, I have to say, we have a special connection with Pittsburgh because our butcher, we stole it from you guys. He's a big penguin fan. And told me to make sure I was mentioning it. So he was here working the other day, feeding the pigs, and sometimes the people working as farm assistant, they go to the salumeria to work there. So we really do see the whole process. Like, those animals are born here, raised here, we do the processing, we kind of really do the whole thing. And that's extremely helpful for us because we can ensure that our product is the quality we want, and it's different. For us, it makes a big difference.
It's a total quality control process. And talking about process, Salame, a story of sweat, traditions, and technology. You have so many interesting articles onto your website. So later on, towards the end of the interview, I will ask you to share all your contact details, which we'll also include in the replay of this beautiful interview. But tell us a little bit, how does it start? Tell us the timings and the steps to make those delicious salami that we can enjoy and order from you.
So, it begins with the boar meeting the sow, if you want to go way back. But basically, our pigs are raised for up to 10 to 12 months, which is very different from the U.S. tradition, where it's about 6 months to raise a pig. We use the suino pesante approach, which is what Italian farmers do to raise their pigs for cured meats. Then we process it. We separate the cuts that are going to turn into fresh meat versus cured meats. The salame is basically a sausage, but with special lactobacillic acid in there and special bacteria basically to promote fermentation. So the fermentation process lasts maybe about a week, and then there is all the aging process, which is about another 4 weeks. So it's, from the time we get the carcass from the slaughterhouse to the time the salami is packaged, it's about a 2 month process. And then for the larger cuts, it's even longer. And there are at least 4 months of aging. And all the process we do have some very high-tech curing chambers from Pagani it's an important company that we're using, that we imported from Italy. But we are really trying to keep the tradition. So we are still tying the salami by hand. We're still mixing the meat by hand, because I was trained by a Norcino from Tuscany several years ago. So I followed him around, and he would show me things. And so I learned kind of the very old way how to do things. And so we're trying to keep this tradition, which is definitely not, financially not a very smart choice, but in terms of what it gives us, in terms of reconnecting to our culture, which is one of the reasons why we do this. It's a very satisfying, especially teaching it to young American butchers. It's very nice to see them learning those old techniques.
Yes, and also, all these attention that you put into the process and your products earned you the Good Food Award just this year for your classical. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Any ingredients that you can share, would like to share, or what goes into your classical?
Well, a lot of love, but we try to keep it very simple. The ingredient, actually the classical is probably one of the simplest one. It has the usual suspects. So you have your salt, you have your pepper, and a little bit of nutmeg, but it remains it remains quite like a pure product, as similar to what the Italian product it is now in Italy. We don't tend to put a lot of spices in our salami. Then we have a spicy one that it's where we actually get the peppers imported from Calabria. For that one, it's definitely straight punch in your nose. But we also have just got a grant from the Department of Agriculture to put up a hoop house, a greenhouse. So we're going to be growing a lot of our herbs and spices here on the farm. So we are going a step farther even to try to keep control of the whole process. And also people, this is set up as a CSA, so you have different selections. You had the pasta and the bread box or the meat box. Is that correct? Yeah, but it's unfortunately that's when it's only for the locals, the one who can come here at the farm. Yes, we don't ship it outside of the state.
No. It would kind of defeat the purpose, because you want to take advantage of the freshness and the locality. It's all about the kilometro zero, so to speak, type of philosophy. So, you continue to progress. People are enjoying your products. You started to have them over. And so you kind of took back the concept, also the communal dining, and this kind of the agriturismo experience. Tell us a little bit about these dinners and the format that you organize on site.
Yeah, it's what you would find in many small agriturismo in Italy, where basically you come in at a specific time and you're seated at the table with other people, and food starts coming in. Food like, the primi, appetizer, primi, secondi, dinner. Usually there is dinner that lasts about 3 hours, and it's 8 courses. And then lunches, maybe 2.5 hours, and there are 5 courses. And sometimes also, we often do a little tour of the farm ahead of time. And for a lot of Americans, that's a novel experience where they don't have that training that we do in terms of sitting at the table and just talking. And so they find it very soothing and a very good way to connect with people they've never met before. And there is nothing, I think, better than connecting over a plate of and dish and nice food that it's made fresh there in the moment. And they are just simple food. It's nothing that you would find in a very high-end restaurant. It's something that a grandma would cook. We call it Grandma Stefano, my partner.
I was going to say, let's actually give credit also to Stefano.
We keep it simple and good, and we really try to help people enjoying the moment here.
Wonderful. So we are going to approach summer. So what does summer look like at the farm?
Summer is very frenzy because every animal is out on pasture. We raise everybody on pasture, so we have, and in order to preserve the health of the pasture, you have to move pigs. You can't just, or the animals, you can't just leave them in the same area or they'll ruin the soil. So it's a constant moving musical chairs where you're moving the sheep in the morning, and then you move that group of pigs in the afternoon, and then, there's the chickens that get to be moved as well. So it's basically keep trying to push some animals on a new part of the land, seeding the old land that they maybe had been stumping on, making hay. It's very active, and then you have little piglets that are born every month, so a couple of litters per month. So you have those little guys that you have to teach them to be on pasture, and they are not very receptive to the idea of electric fences, so they tend to escape and get themselves in trouble. So it's very lively, I think.
I would assume so. Is Eva, right? Your daughter's name? Is she still around?
Yeah, Eva's here.
Okay. Hi. So, was there, I don't know if it was the TV or someone that came out and had some quizzes about the animals. Any questions that maybe you can tell us that, what was it? Something about, no, I don't remember. I was talking to your mom about it, but how was that experience?
It was really fun. It was NPR. And it was super fun because I got to tell about how how we use the sheep and how we use the sheep wool and how we take care of them, and it was just super fun.
So what happens to the wool? Do you have someone that works do you sell it, or do you have someone that makes woolen products for you that you might have back, so to speak, at the farm shop, or is it something that you thought about?
We haven't sold any of our wool. I'm not sure if we're thinking about it.
You see, she's already making executive decisions here.
To sheep when you don't shear them is their wool becomes super firm. It almost feels like a fluffy rock.
Mm-hmm.
And if you shear them, you have to shear them at least once or twice a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have to shear them, so we don't always shear them on time, but also they're very naughty. They are Icelandic sheep, so they are not your normal sheep that you see at the fair.
Mm-hmm.
These sheep are more like goats.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will escape no matter what type of fences you use. So they always end up in burdocks. So they're always covered. Do you know the burdocks? Do you guys have those there?
Personally, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, well, think about it. That's how it was a sheep farmer that invented Velcro.
Okay.
Looking at the burdocks, of those horrible balls that get stuck to your hair, your clothes, and everything. And the moment that they get on the sheep wool, they get burrowed into their coats, and it's impossible to remove them. Mm-hmm. So our sheep seems to really like the roots from those plants.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't use much with the wool. I think that the NPR will be aired in I think it's a program. It's called But Why, mm-hmm. and they had kids asking questions about animals.
And any But Why questions that you can share? That was it. Anything that you remember was asked?
Yeah. So they asked why pigs have curly tails.
Okay. And I wouldn't have any idea. Can you tell us?
Well, there are two answers. Well, they use the curly tails. They use their tail for communication. So they're like dogs in a sense. Like a curly tail means I'm happy, I'm satisfied, look at me. And then when the tail is drooping and down, it's a sign that something is wrong. Maybe I got in a fight with somebody. Maybe somebody upset me. Or maybe I have a belly ache. So they use it for communication. But it's curly also because it seems like it might have been because people have selected those over the years, and some by chance, some of those traits that are associated to the type of meat and fat that we tend to prefer is also linked to the curly tail. So the curly tail is kind of a happy accident that came along.
Okay, so with the happy thought, we have only 30 seconds left. Could you can you tell our customers how they can learn more about your farm? So Agricola Farm, and then Monteverdi is the handcraft salami part of the...
So Agricola Farm can be found at agricolavermont.com, and Agricola VT, it's for Facebook and Instagram.
Wonderful.
And then the salami is Monteverdi VT.
Okay, we will definitely share those links, and you will be seeing my order coming soon. And again, I love that area. I love Vermont, so look forward to meeting you all in person. So for tonight, this is it. Buona serata. Ciao, ciao ad entrambe.
Ciao, ciao.
So unfortunately our hour has flown by. Time is up. Il Big Ben ha detto stop anche questa sera. So it is time for us to say arrivederci, alla prossima. We want to thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Our guest next week will be Russell Anthony Shorto, who is an American author, historian, and journalist who is best known for his book, The Dutch Origins of New York, The Island at the Center of the World. His most recent work is Small Time, The Story of My Family and the Mob. And it's a memoir covering Shorto's own family history and his ancestors' involvement in the American Mafia in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And for the second segment, we'll have Samuel Bozzola, who is a figlio d'arte who had the pleasure to meet with Luciano Pavarotti and have dinner with him many times, and will tell us more about the intimate side of Luciano's life. And remember, if you or any of your family have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, please visit our website at www.istitutomonditaliano.org and click on the Italian Radio Hour tab. Vorremmo ringraziare le nostre ospiti Nadia Fugazza, Alessandra e Eva Rellini, il nostro sponsor Istituto Mondo Italiano, e alla Boara per la musica. And finally, before we leave, here is our trivia question for next week. What does trovarsi con le spalle al muro mean? Again, what does trovarsi con le spalle al muro mean? If you're not you can send your answers to the Italian Radio Hour at gmail.com. If you're not in the Pittsburgh area or might be traveling, remember, you can catch us streaming us live at khbradio.com every Thursday at 5 p.m. And be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao ciao!
Facendo caro fulla dorma e culerami con voglia la via
The Italian Radio Hour has been sponsored by Istituto Mondo Italiano.